What's up? Hey, it's Maiden. I hope everyone is doing well today. So I have been working on, well, I've got my tarot cards all set up. I'm going to do some tarot readings later. But I wanted to get back to my Morrigan, what do you call it? What do I want to say? Well, my research into the Morrigan, because as you might notice, I post a lot of videos about birds and nature and stuff like that. And crows, sorry, I just had iced coffee and it always makes me phlegmy. I know, gross, but anyway, so I'll probably be clearing my throat. But I've always been drawn to crows and ravens, and recently I've noticed that they also choose me. So I had to look into it and find out, well, what do crows have to do with my life, my history? What are they trying to tell me? That led me to the Morrigan. Now, I'm just gonna show this so you can see the book that I'm referring to. And I'm just going to basically read from it because it's fascinating to me and I want to know more about it. I'm probably going to get some more books and do some more research. But for now, I'm going to share what I've already read this book from front. I've already finished it, but I thought I would do a video on here so other people, so it would just save you the time if you don't like to read, or if you just are curious in what this is all about. So, as I mentioned in the first little snippet I did, the Morrigan are, basically it's made up of three sisters, I guess you would, technically they would have been considered sisters, and it's Celtic mythology. The stories are based in Celtic mythology, and there is some history going way back that does kind of prove that there was these goddesses that existed at some point in human form, but a lot of people, you know, they've passed down, just like a lot of other mythological stories and characters, you know, they've added to them, they've embellished them and all of that. So basically, and what did I say in the first one? She's a spirit of fury, peace, power, and destruction, joy and terror. She's a warrior, queen, death, omen, mother, murderer, lover, spy, conspirator, fairy, shapeshifter, healer, and sometimes the living earth itself. So basically, she embodies everyone and everything, like every kind of archetype you can imagine. And it says a captivating contradiction. Demonic female who both haunts and heals. Benevolent in one moment, ghastly the next. And kind the moment after that. So when I read that, I was like, holy shit, you know, that's like most women. You know, let's just be honest. We have our moments where, and, you know, we can chalk it up to hormones, whatever you want to say. But, you know, we all have those aspects of our personality. Anyway, most of us do. And when I was doing some research, because I hear a lot of people refer to Kali, Ma, and I've done a little bit of reading about Hinduism and their goddesses and gods, and I love those stories, and I love the stories about Kali. She is badass. And also, you know, to be feared. And I like that. I mean, I like the do no harm, take no shit type of thing. But these kind of goddesses that, you know, between Kali and the Morrigan, you know, you don't fuck with them, basically. But when I was reading about Hinduism, it just, I believe, you know, there's knowledge there and I appreciate it. But it's not my story. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not something, like, I don't work with Kali, and I don't, I appreciate those kinds of gods and goddesses, but they're not where I resonate with. I've got my Celtic cross here. And my name is Maeve Maiden on here, so, you know, I'm pretty sure you could kind of tell that I have a leaning towards Celtic history and Celtic ancestry. And it's like almost like I'm drawn to that because I know I can trace it. My grandparents came here from Ireland, and you know, they were born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I mean, I very much can prove that, you know what I mean? Like, I can trace it back, and I know that my ancestors are Irish/Celtic, going back a long way. So if I really wanted to do the total history, which perhaps sometime I will do, but anyway, I know that's my history, so I thought I would learn more about that, something that I can actually probably say is in my DNA. So, and, you know, I believe, you know, we go back further than that, of course, and it's all up in the air. People will say, you know, origins started here and there, and, you know, I agree with that, and I'm not disputing any of that, but I know for me, it's what resonates for me, probably in most recent lifetimes, I would say. So that's what drew me to it. And so if this doesn't interest you, then that's fine. But those of you that it does interest, maybe we can go on this journey together to find out more about these types of stories and history and things like that. So I'm just going to read like little snippets of this. I'm not going to sit here and read the whole book. I mean, I've thought about it because, to be honest, I like audiobooks. I like people reading things to me, and there's some really cool stories in here, so I've debated on that. But you know what? The only reason I'm not doing that is because a lot of this history is in Gaelic, and it's very hard to pronounce, to be honest with you. I have studied French and German, and those I can pick up a little bit easier. I've tried Spanish. I mean, it's similar to French, so I think I'm comfortable with that, but Gaelic is a whole other animal. It's just not, you can easily screw it up, and I don't like doing that because I feel like it's, you know, it's kind of like Latin. I mean, you would think it's such an old language, you know. Anyway, so that's the only reason I don't read this from front to back, because I definitely would do that and bore all of you to death. But I mean, hey, if you clicked on it, you clicked on it, and you want to hear it, so. But to the best of our knowledge, the Morrigan originated in Ireland during the Celtic era, which took place from roughly 1000 BCE to 500 CE. Give or take a few centuries. Depending on the region. Today, the word Celtic is nearly synonymous with Ireland, but the Celtic world originally encompassed what are now the British Isles, the Iberian Peninsula, northern Italy, Switzerland, France, southern Poland, and central Turkey. So, you know, and this was something I had to really do some research and find out myself, because I really did think like, okay, Celtic is, you know, Scottish, Irish, but it really does go beyond that. So it's kind of cool to learn. I love history. I mean, I'm a huge history buff, so this is like, I love all this stuff. Far from being a homogeneous culture, the Celtic world was home to a variety of languages, customs, and religious practices. It's sometimes wondered whether Ireland should be included under the Celtic umbrella, its own culture too different from other Celtic countries. Others argue that although Celtic cultures were quite different, similar burial rites and weaponry imply these far-flung communities held key core values. It's beyond the scope of this book to decide the matter, but for the sake of clarity, I'll use the terms Celts or Celtic when discussing the overall Celtic world of the era, and Irish Celts or Celtic Ireland to describe the Irish people of the time. So, you know, obviously there's some differences between actual Irish folklore, Irish mythology, and the whole Celtic. There is a difference there, so that's interesting to learn about also. But I mean, obviously, what drew me to this was the Irish aspects of Celtic history. So anyway, to understand any deity, it's best to attempt to know the culture from which they came. Unfortunately, we know very little about the Celts. Most descriptions came from their contemporaries, who likely did not understand the Celts or were wont to sensationalize details about them. Sorry, that's kind of weird to say. Or were wont. Okay. To even say we know anything about the Celts is an exaggeration. Saying we guess is more accurate. I liken this to, I've done some research on Druids too, because I actually, when I do my rituals and like I do my prayers to my ancestors and things like that, Druids come up a lot for me. I don't know if someone in my family was a Druid or I was a Druid in another life, I don't know, but I'm really drawn to them. And I remember watching some history about Druids and reading about Druids, and the Romans had a whole view on every other culture other than them, you know what I mean? So they kind of doctored history to be a Roman view of history, and I definitely can see that, you know, when you do research on different cultures from back in that time. Romans said everybody were barbarians, everybody were doing this and that, and it was so clearly projection. My hair is going crazy right now. It was so clearly projection from all the shit they were doing. And they were saying all the other cultures were doing these things. Like, oh yeah, they sacrifice children and they do all this. Okay, so I mean, who knows if, I mean, I guess, you know, I don't know a whole lot about Aztec culture, but I've read a lot about that, and I think that they have found evidence of these things. I don't know, but you know, it's just, it's always the Romans saying they do these things, they do that. And they said a lot about the Druid, what do you call it? I don't know if they were tribes. I mean, Druid, what do you call that? I don't want to say Druid groups, because Druids were mostly, they were more like the medicine people. And they were also like I always say the voice of reason in the villages. Okay, let's just say that. They were like the old wise people. So before there were priests, right? There were Druids. That's how kind of I see it anyway. And I mean, every culture had Druids, but I have researched the Celtic or Irish Druids in my research. So anyway, I'm going off on other stuff, but it just resonates for me that they're saying they don't know a whole lot, but what they do know is not probably accurate because it's skewed. All of history is skewed, you know, and especially when it comes to Romans and what they wrote about other cultures, because they were basing it off of fear. I mean, you know, to their credit, they didn't know a lot about these other cultures, but what they thought of them, it's like the, you know, what do you call it? The beast in the woods or something, you know, it's like, you don't really know what's in there until you actually go and travel, and then you actually see like, oh, it's not, there's no monsters there, it's just bears or something, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, but so like many things about the Celtic world, the Morrigan's origins are cryptic. Other cultures, such as that of the Roman Empire, carved out specific roles for their gods. The gods of the Celts, however, were shifty and ambiguous. The religion of the Celts is believed to have been based on rituals, omen interpretation, magical spells, and avoidance of unlucky actions. But to date, no strong archaeological evidence exists for a Morrigan cult. Mythology of the era gives us the best glimpse into the Morrigan, but even this is challenged. The Celts did not keep written texts, preferring to preserve history and myth through oral tradition. So they would speak, you know, a lot of the other cultures, and I guess I would include the Roman Empire or whatever, because they had scripts and texts and they wrote a lot. And, you know, obviously, even back to like the Egyptians, you know, they did pictures and everything, or, you know, drawings. But it seems like the Celtics just spoke about their history, and a lot of it, I think that's where a lot of the Celtic, and now I'm thinking of Irish history, goes back to song, because the Irish would tell stories in song, and I think that's where this is kind of going, if I'm thinking correctly, because Irish people, there are a lot of poets and storytellers in Ireland, but most of them used to sing, and that's how they told their stories. So they obviously didn't write these down, and it would just be like passed down from family to family to generation, and so on and so forth. And it's still like that with, you know, Irish songs and folk songs and stuff. They go on and on and on and on from, you know, centuries ago, which I think is so cool about culture in general. You know, when cultures pass something down and it keeps going, and you're like, you know, my grandma used to sing that song, my grandma's grandma used to sing that song, tell that story, you know, those kinds of things are so cool to me. Stories of the Morrigan and other Irish deities were preserved through manuscripts penned centuries after Ireland Christianized. And obviously, you know, once Christianity came in, everything was demonized, everything was bad, everything that wasn't Christian, let's say, was bad. So obviously they're going to make the Morrigan look like demon women, you know what I mean? Because they're not good Christian women. Christian authors likely changed aspects of the gods to suit the new religion, or simply altered details they found frightening or unimportant. The Morrigan may have evolved from a collection of deities from different Irish Celtic tribes. These have been included prehistoric deities adopted by the Celts from earlier Irish inhabitants. While we may never know the Morrigan's specific origins, we do know that she is primarily an Irish goddess. Myths and effigies of some Celtic deities can be found across Europe, but the Morrigan is believed to be exclusively tied to Ireland. That's why I always say they, but she's my people. She's of my heart. I have ultimate respect and love. Her name offers more clues to her identity. Morgan Daimler writes in the Morrigan, meeting the great queens, that a difference is revealed through the name's spelling. Morrigan is Old Irish and likely means nightmare queen. Morrigan and Morrigan are later Irish versions that likely mean great queen. And again, so Morrigan, I think it's because G and H, I think that's a V sound or F sound. Morrigan. Anyway, so likely mean great queen. So that's in Gaelic, Morrighain. And there's like a little, what do you call that little symbol? I don't know if you can see it. Anyway. Other interpretations of her name include Queen of Phantoms, Sea Queen, or Queen of the Slain. Oh, I love it. I just love this kind of stuff. I know, is it weird that I like that? Morrigan there's just power. When I read about her, I just feel like she's powerful. And I'll get more to, I think there is like, you know, I was expecting there to be a lot more about the crows and the ravens in this and what they represent as far as the Morrigan goes, but there's not a whole lot in this book, to be honest with you. I'll get to that. But that's what I really came here for, to be honest, when I first picked this book up. There's a lot more books out there, and obviously this is just the one that I happen to have. But Yeah. Hold on one second.